While the top 3 places for contender for worst game are pretty much set in stone for most people, Sonic the Hedgehog, otherwise known as Sonic 06, is like the runt of the litter for dogshit games. It gets the same amount of vehement hate as the top 3 big boys, but simultaneously gets defended to hell and back again by large portions of the fanbase, leaving it in a weird position regarding its claim to the throne for the shittiest game. Despite the name leading you to believe it's the first in the series, Sonic the Hedgehog is the 10th game in the series, not including the expansive spin-off games, and is meant to celebrate Sonic's 15-year anniversary. The title is the way it is because Sega made the bold decision to try and reboot the franchise with this rushed product, and we can see how well that went in retrospect. But who cares about the opinion of game reviewers who've played more games than me and Sonic fans who know the lore better than me when you can get this small YouTuber's opinion on this infamous game? Off the bat, you can see where they blew most of their budget, as the opening, as well as a few other important cutscenes, have markedly improved visuals over the in-game cutscenes. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I prefer games to have consistent looking cutscenes instead of great ones mixed with others, just for consistency's sake and because the pre-rendered cutscenes usually have a capped FPS. The actual content of this opening scene is like the beginning of a fantasy series, with many mysteries and foreign terms brought up to entice you to learn more about them. Between you and me, if I wasn't making this video, I wouldn't have given a rat's ass what happened next. After Sonic saves the princess from Eggman, this unknown hedgehog who, like Sonic, sticks out in this realistic world like a pair of testes on the lesbian island, calls Sonic the Iblis Trigger. Whilst we don't know what that means yet, it makes sense, since after this game dropped, the mere sight of Sonic would trigger his fans. Switching back to old regular ass graphics sees the princess get captured by Eggman, but not before she throws a gem to Sonic that Eggman couldn't care less about. This realistic version of Eggman freaks me the fuck out and looks like he could be a mad scientist in a horror film that tortures people. I certainly wouldn't let my kids around him if I could get laid. Despite being night when the princess was captured, the gameplay starts in the exact same location but in the middle of the day. I don't blame Sonic, I would be panic stricken after seeing a creepy old man take a young girl like that. Soliana is the hub world for the game and is always set in daytime despite how prior cutscenes may play out. Phonetically spoken, the town sounds like Solana, which probably could be a foot fetish OnlyFans. Just me? Moving on. Like any typical hub world, Soliana is the connector to the main missions and provides side missions to earn extra rings to spend at the shops dotted around it. These shops help you buy abilities to access new levels, and the whole point of the first side mission is to get the power to access the first main mission. Unlike other levels in this game that feature recognizable landmarks, Soliana is confusing to navigate because of its repetitive environments. This, as well as NPCs having names like Old Man Near Water and Shopkeeper Lady, makes it feel like an unfinished placeholder. Controlling Sonic means you'll finally get to see his legendary speeds because every little nudge you give him on the controller seems to overshoot slightly. Moving over uneven ground like a street edge wouldn't be a problem in other games, but doing so in Sonic 06 causes the camera to jerk down like Sonic almost tripped and broke an ankle. With many games being labelled movie-like as a selling point, Sonic 06 seems to have tried to have a realistic cameraman because if you turn the camera and something in the environment is in the way, it blocks the camera from turning fully. Loading screens infest this game like flea-ridden rats did the 1300s, and you can't turn in a circle without 3 load times interrupting you. I mean, this game has more loads in it than your mum after a gangbang. People have actually worked out that around 11% of the total playtime of this game is just watching the loading screen. The Sonic 06 loading screen has been burned into me like a light has been shone in your eyes. So, for my suffering, please like the video if you liked it, but not if you loved it, because I don't want you to marry this video or anything. The first level proper sees you chasing after the princess and contains most of the gameplay you'd find in most of the other levels. Well, no shit, I guess. Rings, like most Sonic games, are its bread and butter, and can be collected by destroying boxes, defeating enemies, or merely picking them up as they lay on the ground. Collecting rings means you won't instantly die from an enemy attack, and despite you having a few moves at your disposal, frequent use of the homing attack is your best bet, because then you won't have to wrangle with the controls as much. Running through hint rings gives advice ranging from the completely obvious to ones making you question if they forgot to add additional information into the prior cutscene. Most collectibles serve no purpose other than to improve your score at the end of the level, and running through star posts acts as a checkpoint when you die, which never seems to happen in this glitchless, annoying control-free game. You do have a limited amount of lives, and since this game doesn't automatically save for you, running out of lives at any point without any manual saving sends you back to the starting cutscene, as many other people have found. Not me, however. I manually save whenever I can despite the lack of prompts from the game because of my PTSD this worst game series has given me. Levels are mostly linear, but the harder to get to branching paths lead to better collectibles to improve your score. Despite it looking like it lacks some animation frames, the jumping from section to section parts of the game looks more fun than it is, because it's mostly automated with you occasionally pressing the jump button, and sometimes I don't even have to do as little as that. Jumping from vertical wall to vertical wall makes Sonic give no fuck about gravity, since he seemingly sticks to the side for way too long before bouncing to the next wall, leaping like Legolas did at the end of the third Hobbit film. Landing on the jump pads looks especially strange because Sonic bounces off in the correct direction regardless of how he landed on it. What might have worked in the 2D Sonic just looks weird when touching the back of a jump pad can launch Sonic perfectly. Sonic is chased by an orca and gameplay switches to Tails, who you found bumming around Soliana. Tails activates a gate to trap the orca from escaping to the ocean, and I didn't know Sonic and company were working for SeaWorld. Should I root for them at all now? Most levels in the game switch from the main character to a side character briefly, most times for no given reason. As frustrating as these controls are, unlike most sets of flawed control schemes, you can almost get a feel and get used to them by the game's finish. These touchy controls are like getting used to a mouse on the highest sensitivity. With a bit of wrangling you can almost be accurate. Although what's the use of taming these beastly controls if they're just going to swap to a different character? Not even taking into consideration their different movesets. All the playable characters have slightly different movement speeds, so all the calibrations you had in your head are now slightly off. As well as the poorly controllable vehicles, these different characters just serve as a waiting period before you get back to the best controls found in Sonic. The Orca launches Sonic into the max speed zone, and these are probably my least favourite sections of the game. Fortunately they don't show up much, but the sensitivity of the controls worsens as you go into supersonic speeds. Continuously going forward, your only options of movement are left and right as well as jumping. Running into objects humorously causes Sonic to spin forward at the same momentum. Like other sections of the game, being hit causes all rings to be lost, and unlike other sections, they decided not to include checkpoints here. In the end, the ship carrying Princess Elise gets away, rendering the first level completely pointless. Finishing levels gives you a ranking, which is determined by how fast you finish the level, as well as how many rings you finished with. A better ranking gives you more rings to spend at stores, and you can spend these on new abilities and gems. Gems are an ability that can be assigned one at a time and use an energy bar, but programming issues made the energy bar never deplete. This means Sonic can infinitely spam a shield or use an infinite jump to skip large sections of levels. I tried not to exploit it too much in the game, but with how broken the game is, I couldn't help myself. Unfortunately for me, the cutscenes never veer into the so bad that it's good territory and always seem so close to being that way. I was waiting for any memorable fuck up, but like the kid in class whose voice cracks like an unmoisturized skin in winter, somehow managing to read 2 paragraphs without a hiccup, you just get left with blue balls. Really, it's from the game taking itself way too seriously, and this makes the cutscenes dull to sit through.
I saw Eggman on the outskirts of the city. He wanted me to give this to you.
Sonic the Hedgehog. If you want me to return the princess, you must give me your Chaos Emerald. Meet me at my base in White Acropolis.
Huh. He's pretty cocky.
It's most definitely a trap. I don't think Eggman will honor his agreement.
The next level starts with Sonic and Tails immediately finding the princess, further solidifying how pointless that last mission was, and 2 seconds later, Eggman shows up to start one of the game's many boss fights. The strategy for this one is to slide up the Egg Cerberus's back and to control its head to ram into the walls. Controlling his head is about as easy as wrangling with the normal Sonic 06 controls, and staying on top too long will lead him to throw you off. Whilst not the biggest compliment, I do like how each boss fight has significantly different strategies for defeat. After defeating the boss, Tails says he'll distract the oncoming robots, and Sonic agrees, possibly to try and kill off the girl-voiced bastard, and Sonic escapes carrying Elise. In some cutscenes you can really tell this is an English dub over the original Japanese version, since characters' mouths can keep flapping a few seconds after audibly talking.
Well, Blaze? To kill someone to save the world.
While carrying Elise, you gain the ability to create a shield so you can run over the sinking sands of the level, but it does have a draining energy bar, unlike some gems. Really, all this level introduces is some cage sections to progress the level that can only be uncaged by defeating all nearby enemies, and mini boss enemies that take more than one homing attack to kill. The level ends with Sonic and Elise spending some quality time together, and I hate how this game tries to push this relationship. Elise has a reverse Stockholm syndrome because she had love heart eyes for Sonic the millisecond he first rescued her, and he is about as interested in her as a baby would be in the politics of Antarctica. I don't know what she sees in him physically since he has no visible penis. It's the nose. It's always been the nose. Any scene with them has me sweating at the collar because my heart clamps up with the awkwardness seeing two characters interact and form a romantic relationship that's more forced than a one-night stand with Harvey Weinstein.
Sonic! Sonic! Wait! I can't run that fast!
Attempting to get rid of her, Sonic drags Elise behind him until only a bloody stump of an arm remains, or at least I hope for, so I wouldn't have to listen to her voice again. Returning to Soliana sees the mysterious hedgehog from before called Silver engage you in a boss fight. He telekinetically throws objects at you, but the main strategy is to hear a voice cue from him as he lifts objects and to slide kick attack him, as he grabs you while doing homing attacks. The arguing Sonic and Silver have at the end of the fight sees the princess kidnapped again, and spoilers, this isn't the last time this happens. Princess Elise is so useless that her only purpose seems to help Sonic gain some muscle when he carries her around because his arms are as skinny and white as mine. Elise is voiced by Lacey Chabert of Mean Girls fame, so I guess that's why you need to fetch Elise so much. Amy, who sounds like Marge Simpson on Helium and who we've never met before, stops Silver from attacking Sonic so he can yet again save Elise. The soundtrack in this game is incredible, and I know what you'll say. Just listen to the music in your own time, don't bother with the game itself, but it benefits the game and I'll tell you why. Hotline Miami is by no means a mediocre outing, but after dying multiple times and being frustrated, nothing pushes me through those tough sections more than the beast of a soundtrack blasting in my ears. Same applies here. You'll be gripping the controller in anger while bobbing your head to the rhythm, having the adrenaline and serotonin mix in a way to delude you into continuing to play. If you don't believe me, here are a few of my favorites. After meeting with Knuckles at Soliana's docks, and by this point what character hasn't been introduced in Soliana, you find out Eggman now gives a fuck about the gem Elise gave you at the start of the game and will trade Elise for it. The next level starts with Sonic snowboarding, and this section could get a gold medal in the shit control Olympics. These controls are stiffer and more fucked than previously because while nudging the thumbstick still sends Sonic further than expected, you can randomly slow down after hitting certain patches of snow. Hey, next time Sonic, try running in snowshoes. Winter sports just aren't your forte. After giving Eggman the gem, which is a Chaos Emerald, Eggman powers on his time machine and Sonic and Co are transported through time. Eggman says his machine is inaccurate, so hopefully Sonic isn't transported into the future where time machines are a thing. We also find out Eggman needs all 7 Chaos Emeralds and the princess to revive the flames of disaster to help him rule the world. I know these have been in all the other Sonic games in some capacity, but why call them Chaos Emeralds when only one of them is green? The characters are unfortunately transported to modern day Detroit and meet up with Rouge and Shadow. Sonic and Shadow need to work together to create a space-time rift to return back from the future. After going through the decrepit city, you overhear Silver being gaslit into believing Sonic is the Iblis Trigger, and they teleport themselves into the present to witness Silver being beaten by Sonic. You also find on the future computer that Elise dies soon after capture since Eggman's battleship exploded, but she would have died anyway since her handlers weren't there to tell her to breathe. Sonic and Shadow do the Chaos Control with the Chaos Emerald and the Chaos Turquoise to create a portal back to the present. After Sonic and Co go through, Shadow hesitates when looking back, maybe getting an offer to be in a better game. Sonic finds out they're back in the present by reading a newspaper he found on the ground. How do fictional characters get so lucky with finding shit on the floor? The best I've gotten is like $5 and a ripped knockoff Yu-Gi-Oh card. After saving Elise from Eggman's train, an appearance by Silver has him saying there will be no more interruptions with fighting Sonic, but not before Shadow appears to fight him. We find out Silver thinks Shadow is Mephiles, and in a slight distraction, Elise is captured by Eggman again. Sonic saves Elise because he catches her after she leaps from Eggman's ship about 50 meters in the air, and she genuinely seems surprised when he catches her. Sonic then throws her in a naughty corner and goes to battle with Eggman's mech.
Though I've been frightened many times, I've also enjoyed this adventure. It allowed me to be something other than a princess.
A princess in distress?
Sonic, if you leave here to go on another adventure, remember this place.
Well, I'm sure all the Sonic fans would like to forget. Eggman invades Soliana and threatens to harm people if Elise doesn't turn herself over, which she does. This is the easiest way she's been taken, and I would be laughing too, but I've had to suffer her being kidnapped so frequently, you'd think she was being mistaken for Princess Peach. Fuck this redhead, get your skin burnt or something. Eggman is headed to a castle to find the final Chaos Emerald, and Sonic needs to complete trials to get there. The last trial is a trial of love, and your options are Elise and Amy. As I've said earlier, Elise is an annoying character to deal with, and Amy has been seen once before in this game. Now I know this doesn't look great on my end for not knowing all the Sonic characters, since they have been established in prior games, but the way the game retook the original Sonic name, you'd think they'd do a better job of re-establishing characters for those tricked into thinking that this was the first game. Regardless of your choice, an eagle carries you up to the castle.
You look like you're in a hurry.
No, he's standing around listening to you. As foretold, Elise dies when Eggman's battleship crashes, which you'd think would be fine since without her and the Chaos Emeralds, there will be no way of reviving the Flames of Disaster.
Elise!
Sonic then goes back in time to try and stop this disaster he already knew would happen. After traversing through Eggman's aquatic base, which was accessed by ringing some bells in Soliana, Sonic catches up to Eggman by boarding the battleship he knows will eventually crash. Not wanting Sonic to beat him in a stupidity battle, Eggman engages Sonic in a boss battle instead of finding a way to escape. The general strategy for this battle is to avoid Eggman's attacks from his robot dragon and to grab onto it to ram it into things, similarly to the Egg Cerberus fight. Eggman is so shocked at his defeat that he seemingly lets himself fall to his death, and Sonic escapes the crashing ship with Elise by having plot armor. Other than time travel and saving Elise, abso-fucking-lutely nothing happened in the story. Not wanting to end there, the game continues with Shadow as the main playable character now. Funny how two other protagonists and various side characters have more playtime than the eponymous character this game was meant to be celebrating. Since they're lazy motherfuckers, all levels are repeated in all stories and all boss fights are repeated with slight variations. You can tell with some repeated levels they took no effort into changing anything, since some characters' abilities just help them breeze through levels that were obviously designed around other characters. Even during the main character versus main character boss battles, no matter who you play as to beat the other, the cutscene at the end plays out the same way, like the losing Hedgehog got in a few cheap shots during a loading screen.
Hey! Ha!
Shadow is like a dark-skinned, dark and edgy, more combat-oriented Sonic that gets access to a multitude of, because he knows that only running fast really gets no women. Well, except for Amy and Elise, but who would want them? Shadow runs slightly slower than Sonic, and while he has more methods for attacking enemies, his homing attack is still the most useful, even though it feels like it has a slight delay to it. Shadow's vehicle controls are, now repeat after me, as sensitive as an uncircumcised unjacked penis, and like said penis, can shoot in some capacity. Shadow's story starts proper by saving Rouge and the item she stole, the Scepter of Darkness, from Eggman's base, for their company GUN. Guess they can't say a gun because it's a kid's game, right? After some fights, Rouge delivers information about Soliana to Shadow like she was reading from a Wikipedia page.
Ah, Soliana, the city of water. It has a constitutional monarchy, you know. The primary industries are tourism and crafting precision machinery. The current sovereign is Princess Elise III.
To complete her mission, Rouge's rendezvous point just so happens to be in a level Sonic had already done.
What a place to choose for an extraction point.
Thanks for agreeing, Shadow. Rouge decides to Wikipedia read Kingdom Castle's backstory to Shadow.
The former king of Soliana used to reside in this castle, but a major accident occurred 10 years ago, and no one's lived there since.
Accident?
I heard a prototype energy engine failed, which caused the accident. I think the name of the plan was...
The Solaris Project.
Thanks for interrupting, Eggman. Couldn't stand it. In a disagreement on who should narrate the backstory of Ares, a fight ensues, and the Scepter of Darkness is dropped, releasing Mephiles, who takes the form of Shadow. This explains why Silver mistakes Shadow for Mephiles, but only if he's mouth and colorblind. In fact, what creeps me out is all the hedgehogs in this game have one big eye. Mephiles transports the three of them into the future, and the story runs concurrent on how it does on the Sonic side of things. Shadow doesn't go through the portal because he sees Mephiles, and Mephiles tries to convince Shadow to join his side by saying the humans blame Shadow for the destruction seen in the future. Shadow instead fights Mephiles, and Rouge, having gone back to the past, gives this robot, Omega, a Chaos Emerald to help Shadow in the future fight. Mephiles escapes through a time portal, and Shadow and Omega conveniently follow him through. After getting no help from Eggman as to why he wants to use Mephiles, you fight Silver, and unknowingly, both Shadow and Silver do a Chaos Control at the same time. This creates a portal 10 years into the past, showing the failed experiments Elise's father was doing that led to the creation of Iblis and Mephiles. Elise's father hands Shadow the Scepter of Darkness to seal Mephiles, and Shadow runs off to capture Mephiles while Silver goes for Iblis, because these main characters can only be concerned with one villain at a time. When overanalyzing these shitty games, even elements you wouldn't blink at in great games seem weird. Like, you're now in Eggman's aquatic base, and now Shadow's vehicle is somehow down there. Eggman, you don't want to help Shadow at all, do you? Shadow steals Mephiles with the Scepter of Darkness and leaves it in the past so it can be replicated when he goes back to the future. One thing I love is that these characters are so fast for the AI buddies to catch up with them in Soliana, so that the game frequently spawns them behind you as you run. After smoking Mephiles faster than Snoop does his blunts, Omega reveals he is the one who seals Shadow off. Oh, Mephiles, one of the two. It's so hard to distinguish between them, right?
It's so unfair.
Couldn't you give any more emotion into that? You follow Mephiles, whose escape I'm blaming Omega on, and Mephiles is searching for a Chaos Emerald to merge back with Iblis. The Scepter of Darkness breaks when sealing Mephiles because, didn't you see? We've got another main character to play as.
Chooses to become my enemy. I will fight like I always have.
The next story belongs to Silver the Hedgehog, and call me crazy, but that motherfucker looks white. He's the slowest out of the three main characters, both physically and mentally, because how are you going to be tricked by Mephiles? Silver has the most unique skill set out of the playable characters, and the main skills used are levitating ability and psychokinetic throwing powers, which both use the energy bar. The bigger the object picked up depletes the energy faster, and 60% of the time this ability always hits your target. Despite his whiny voice, I like Silver as a character and his story the most.
For now.
But it'll just rise up from its ashes again. What's the point of all this? It'll never end.
While I can't substantiate these claims, I swear I saw somewhere that he was meant to be the main character, and that explains why his section is the most interesting. Silver, as well as his sidekick Blaze, live in the desolate future of 200 years from the present that we've seen earlier. This destruction was caused by Iblis, who is a threat that Silver always battles to keep away, but never can find a permanent solution to get rid of him. Mephiles offers Silver a way to defeat Iblis, which we know Sonic is getting the blame for, and sends Silver and Blaze to the present. I know we are told never to judge a book by its cover, but if something looking like that with no mouth tries to tell me anything, I'm not believing a word they say. Of course he's talking shit. The only hole Mephiles can speak out of is his asshole. I think it's pretty neat that both Silver and Blaze have a little scene admiring how beautiful the present is compared to their future. Blaze somehow knows that the blue hedgehog Mephiles was talking about is Sonic, so she rushes to stop Silver.
Now I've got you, Sonic!
Hey!
It's about time I finally caught you again! Hey! sorry.
Amy and Silver are the perfect colorblind pairing. Like, I know it's dark, but how are you going to mix up a stark white hedgehog for Sonic? After Amy stops Silver from killing Sonic by saying he would never destroy the world, Silver just believes her. Doesn't seem like he's that committed to the cause if the person you've just known for a brief period can override the lies Mephiles told him, another person he'd just met. Conflicted about killing Sonic, Silver and Blaze go to Eggman's base to find out more about Sonic. They find a Chaos Emerald, and Blaze says a miracle happens when 7 are collected. You'd think you would tell them that when Mephiles handed him one back in the future. Could save a lot of Sonic killing. Just saying. Amy is looking for Sonic at Eggman's base and runs into Elise as she escapes from her prison cell. Oh wait. You can start MacGyvering the second Sonic isn't a playable character. The pushing of the Sonic and Elise partnership is accidentally furthered by Amy, and this is up there with the worst scene.
You wouldn't happen to have some feelings for this person, would you?
What? No, of course
It's
not.
okay. Love changes everything. It feels like every little moment in your life is huge, doesn't it? So, what does this guy look like? Have you already been on a date with him?
Well, no, I really haven't.
A one-way love? That's so cute. Come on, there's no need to be shy. Look, you're a princess and you're super cute. That guy's the lucky one. I also have someone that I'm pursuing too. I wish us both luck.
Mephiles tells Silver where Sonic is, and this is where the story leads to both Shadow and Silver going 10 years into the past. While Shadow goes off to seal Mephiles, Silver goes off to seal Iblis. While Silver suppresses Iblis, get this, the king seals off Iblis into Elise. One last caveat the king gives in his dying breath to the unconscious Elise is to never cry because that releases Iblis. Taking the chances of a child not crying to prevent the destruction of the world is insane, and in universe, this will be like 1996, I think they'd be medically advanced enough to surgically remove her tear ducts. Silver, finally realizing he's been duped by Mephiles to release Iblis, helps Sonic. After sending Sonic back in time to save Elise from the crash, Silver and Blaze go back to the future to defeat Iblis. Silver tries and fails to seal Iblis into himself, so Blaze steps up for the job to stop this catastrophe. She then tells Silver to seal her away in another dimension, and he refuses, and I think, like me, Silver would think Blaze just wouldn't cry. Instead, Blaze seals herself, but it damn near looks like she's going to heaven. The final chapter sees Mephiles instantly kill Sonic, and this upsets Elise enough to cry, which releases Iblis. Mephiles did more in those 2 seconds than a veteran villain like Eggman did in a whole game. Like, it's time to retire, old man. Mephiles merges with Iblis to make Solaris and creates his own spatial dimension that somehow sucks all the relevant characters into it. They figure that Mephiles was trying to use the death of Sonic to cause Elise to cry instead of, like, I don't know, beating her up to get her to cry instead of this convoluted plan. Elise somehow senses that Sonic is still alive with her 6th sense that replaces any senses that would tell you that a relationship with a hedgehog wouldn't work. Silver thinks the Chaos Emerald scattered around the dimension would revive Sonic, and the characters split up to collect them. The next section sees you play as all previous playable characters to collect the emeralds. The only difference in gameplay is that there are now gravity wells that try to suck the characters, like a hot girl would an unmarried Catholic boy. The levels they use are just recolored versions of previous levels, and just letting you know, Sonic team, we aren't Silver, you can't trick us with that shit. Elise uses the Chaos Emeralds to revive Sonic, and to seal the deal she kisses him. This is the worst part of the game, and thank God that flash of light senses the kiss. Wrong on so many levels, like Sonic is celebrating his 15th birthday and Elise is 17. That's interspecies kissing with a dead hedgehog at that. Sonic revives into a Super Saiyan, and this causes Shadow and Silver to go Super Saiyan too. They team up to battle Solaris, switching out with one another throughout the fight, and no matter how cool the boss fight, that Elise kiss would put a dampener on the rest of the game. Hint, it was pretty boring for a final battle. After the defeat of Solaris, it reverts into a tiny flame, and during a flashback, it turns out the king was hoping to use the flame to bring back Elise's mother. First off, in previous flashbacks, if someone's mother or father is nowhere to be seen, it's obvious they're dead. And isn't it a bit late to be telling us all this? When Elise puts out the flame, time reverts to the starting parade of the game with Solaris gone, essentially erasing all the events of the game. First of all, before the flame goes out, it looked like Eggman was getting off scotch-free since he helped everyone in the Solaris dimension. Second, it looks like the developers realized this game was going to be shit, and retconned the whole fucking game. I know everything could have potential, but if they cut out half of the characters and convoluted shit in this game, the story could have been good. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Sonic 06 because it feels like they were trying to give it their all, unlike a lot of games on this worst game search that just feel like a part of a money laundering scheme. Maybe this soft spot comes from discovering Charles Hamilton, a rapper I found while making the video whose song has been playing in the background throughout. Look, I'm being optimistic because Sega learnt their lesson and never published another bad Sonic game, right? Right? To sum it up in an analogy, Sonic 06 is like a runway model who fell down a flight of stairs and with her face still bloody and both ankles broken, dragged themselves to the catwalk to do the job they were paid to be there for. At first, it's impressive that they even have the drive to continue, but eventually you just want someone to scream out, "Get off the stage and go to the hospital, you're scaring the children." Me. Just bring up the list because I'm still in shock at how this could have been great if they hadn't pushed this game being completed for the 15-year anniversary, because who cares about anniversaries unless they're celebrating the 1st, 5th or 10th year? Who cares that much if you put a big celebration for 15 years? Just do something for Sonic's 16th birthday or make him have a late birthday party. He's a fictional character, he won't complain. I'm rambling. So if you're still here, see you next time.
How long is this gonna go on?